Today we're going to talk about research-based mathematics strategies in special education. So first let's talk about what math learning disabilities might look like. Often the technical name for this is dyscalculia, and math difficulties are just as common as reading difficulties. A lot of times we focus on reading disabilities, but math is just as prevalent. Memorization and organization can be really difficult, which is really important for growing math skills. It's usually poor number sense and arithmetic skills that are an indicator of a math learning disability. Math anxiety often makes the difficulty more prevalent. The worry about math can amplify the struggles. And another really good indicator is when students struggle to do the real life math, like time, money, or mental math, all things that we would want our students to be able to do in the long term. So two kind of common ways to look at math disabilities are this mathematics learning disability, and MLD. It's students who are at or below the 10th percentile in standardized testing for 2 consecutive years. We see about 7% of our students in schools with this level of need, and very interestingly enough, it can be genetic. These things can run in the family. Another way to look at some of these math disabilities are through low achievement. So this is in that 25 or below percentile, again, 2 consecutive years, and we're looking at about 10% of students with this disability. One of the key pieces to any disability is this intelligence and processing speed. So general intelligence can really be a predictor if there's going to be a learning disability in reading or math. Oftentimes the intelligence scores will range between 90 and 95. You'll see significant struggles with problem solving, and a lot of these math learning disability indicators really show up in that basic processing and working memory speed. So we want to make sure that we're checking for all kids who might have a need. So we need to make sure that we're screening all students, looking at testing data, looking at classroom data, prioritizing, really understanding our students. We can do that a lot through pre-tests, which not only activate prior knowledge, but they can also bring clarity to that focus. What are we really looking at in students, and what errors do we see and what deficits are we finding? Now, common deficits in students with math learning disabilities are fact retrieval, counting knowledge, arithmetic, and procedural competence. Now, when you think of something like long multiplication, it utilizes all of these skills. So you can really see why having a math learning disability would put students at a disadvantage as they continue to progress through math. So we want to look at some evidence-based practices that we can use for our students in math, especially in special education, who have an identified learning disability. So we know that evidence-based practices are developed strategies, practices, interventions that have research to support that they are effective in the classroom. Not only is there research, but the research is high quality and has been performed for several students over a wide range of ages and settings. We know that evidence-based practices have measurable outcomes in educational, social, and behavioral areas. So they really are the best teaching practices to implement. We use them because they have been proven by research to have positive outcomes. We know they've been tested before. We're not the first people to do it. We know that they're really grounded in that research and knowledge of professionals. And we know that it's a universal practice for all students. It will work really well for our students with learning disabilities, but it'll really work for any student in the classroom. So we talk about this kind of universal design. What does every student need? And when we start looking at these evidence-based practices, we want to make sure kids understand why they're learning, right? What are we teaching them? What excitement is there? What motivation do they have? What's their why? What are they learning? How are we presenting the information? What facts are they getting? And then how are they learning? Are they audio, visual? Do they like to do the arts? All of these pieces play into how we teach students. So one of the important evidence-based practices is teacher modeling. In mathematics especially, kids need to see how it's done. Teachers need to model using clear and concise language. Oftentimes we see teacher modeling called show and tell, or maybe the I do, we do, you do method, right? The teacher gets up and shows you, explain what needs to be done, and visuals and verbals are often utilized. So when talking about visuals in math, Visual representation is one of the leading ways students with math and learning disabilities learn. You have to remove the abstract of just putting a number on the board. Using manipulatives like base 10 blocks or chips or coins, real money, number lines, graphs, drawing bar models, whatever it might be. Research shows that students are more successful when they are able to visualize math in a other way other than just putting the numbers on the paper. Students also need this explicit instruction. Teachers have to model how to do it. They need to have guided practice, right? Teachers select how you're going to do it, in what order you're going to do it, but then support the student doing it. And students need ongoing and timely feedback. They need to know how they're doing, and they need to know if they're doing it right or wrong. So in all of this modeling and explicit instruction, it's important for students to know that there are multiple strategies. Math is one of those areas, like when you read a word, there's usually one way to read a word. But with math, there's multiple ways to do things. So expose students to those multiple ways of learning, whether it's audio or visual, technology-based, through the arts, through drawing, whatever it might be. Add interactive components to your lesson to show them there's more than one way to do math. Also, strategic number counting can be really helpful for students with poor number sense. So it's really direct instruction on how to count, on the sense of numbers, giving them the opportunity to practice, do really simple addition and subtraction to get a sense of larger than, smaller than, represent numbers in many ways, tallies, arrays, regular numbers, objects, whatever it might be. And using flashcards and number lines to really get that idea of sequencing. A lot of students with math learning disabilities, number sense is one of the big faults. Peer-assisted instruction is another great evidence-based practice. Have kids from different ages support each other. Have kids within your classroom support each other. And strategically do pairings, maybe a high-low student, 2 low students, whatever that might look like in your setting. So progress monitoring is also an important component. Kids need to be tracked. Just because you're implementing a strategy doesn't mean you'll be successful. Continually check on how they're doing, gather information, and make sure you're using the right interventions for each student. Students also need feedback. How are they doing? How can they get better? What did they do well? What should they do next time? Evidence-based practices work best when kids know what is happening with their learning. So we need to make sure that in every classroom, students are participating, that we're adapting our small group instruction, that we're assessing to improve our instruction, and that we're building student relationships. Some things we want to make sure that we're not doing. We should not be doing too much. Memory overload is very real for students with learning disabilities. Do not give lengthy instruction. Don't give too many steps at once. And please make sure that you're reviewing. Students need multiple opportunities to learn this content. Make sure that work is being done correctly. Do not give the chance for kids to do work poorly and learn the wrong way. Make math real. Try to skip paper and pencil worksheets when at all possible. Do hands-on learning. And make sure you move at a pace that kids can follow. I hope this gave you some information about math learning disabilities and some evidence-based strategies that you can use with your students.